So I'm so excited to have you here today on Mom with a Microphone. My friend Elise Jones, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name's Elise Jones. I am at the ripe old age of 33. I am married 5 years. 5 years. I have 2 kids. I'm a stay-at-home mom with a little side hustle.
You can do a shameless plug. Talk if you want to talk about your side hustle, if you want to.
No,
you don't have to.
It's okay. It's okay. I guess that's it. Yeah, there's nothing really else to.
Oh, there's plenty. Oh, there's plenty. And we're about to unfold and unpack so much because the thing about it is, like, I'm a firm believer that you are the sum of your life experiences. Like, just who you are is the sum of your life experiences. And so I'm really interested to dig in today because this is a topic I don't know a lot about. And I think it's one that listeners will be intrigued by, but for so many possible different reasons. Like, it's the things that I know that you're about to say are about to blow my mind. So it's interesting because a lot of times you think you know about something, or maybe you only know a little bit, but the things that you know aren't even, like, it doesn't even scratch the surface. So I'm excited. So I'm going to just start with, I want you to share your journey. I want you to talk about your journey. I want you to go as deep as you want to or not. Okay. And I'm going to keep it pretty, like, open-ended, vague questions to give you that space and that opportunity. So let's just start, like, literally at the beginning. So tell me about your childhood.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I was born in Tennessee, which you would not know. I don't have an accent anymore.
What part?
Just outside of Memphis. So
I love Memphis.
Yeah, so it was a suburb called Collierville.
I know Collierville.
Yeah, so now it's like this big, kind of affluent area.
Oh, it is.
It was not when I grew up there.
Okay.
I would say it was like, I don't know, maybe what Wentzville was, 15 years ago.
Okay.
So we had like a Walmart, or maybe like Troy, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't a big, city. So that's where I grew up. We lived there until I was, 8. So there were, let me think of how many kids we had in the family before we moved away from there. Let's see, we moved there from when I was 8. Like, we're all 2 years apart, so that's how I kind of figure out, like, for the most part.
And how many siblings
So
do you have?
I'm the oldest of 7.
Oldest of 7.
Yeah, so the youngest and I are 17 years apart.
Ooh.
So we're 2 years apart until my brother, who is 24. Yep. Yes, 24. And then there's like a little bit of a gap. And then I have an 18-year-old sister and a 16-year-old little brother.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Goodness.
Yeah, there's a lot of us.
There's a lot of you.
It's like really loud at holidays. Really loud at holidays. But so we lived there until I was 8. And then we moved to St. Peter's, actually, locally. And then lived here for 2 years. And then I was in Illinois with just my mom and 5 of us for 2 years.
Okay.
My parents separated for just a short time. And then when they got back together, we moved back to locally in this area.
Okay.
And I've been here ever since then. So I see, we moved back, I think I was 12 when we moved back to the area. So I finished high school locally and then went off to college. What else do you want to know? You just cut all this out, obviously.
I'm probably going to nope, I'm not. I'm going to probably come back to this question.
Okay.
Once we kind of dig deeper into what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay.
So I guess, what was it like growing up with 7 siblings? Like, that's not something that a lot of people can say that they had. So, like, 6 other siblings, I guess. So what was that like?
No, it was a lot. Now, I'm the oldest, and like, the first child is always like the bossy, controlling, you know what I mean? And so I was like the second mom, you know what I mean? I have 4 brothers, so there's 4 boys, and then there are 3 girls.
Okay.
And so it was just loud, chaotic. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, and we're all such different personalities, like complete opposites. And I would say like half, if not all of us, have ADHD. So it was like, it was insane. My poor mother.
You're right.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot. But, obviously there were fun times, but, being, so close in age, only a couple of years apart.
Yeah.
There's like the older group of us, we get along really well and we know each other pretty well. And then there's like the younger, half of us that I actually don't know as well. Like my youngest brother was born when I was 17.
You were grown, literally, and probably gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, people would, if I was around and not working, people would think he was my kid, like in public. I'm like, no, he's not mine. But, so I don't know them as well, obviously. But yeah, it was just busy. It was busy.
So what were some of first of all, why 7 kids? Did your parents just want a big family? Or?
Yeah. So my dad always did. I think he may have convinced my mom. They thought they were going to stop at 5. So after my little brother, Adam, they thought they were going to be done. And then, a few years later, that's why the other 2 are so much younger than everyone else.
So they were fake done.
They were fake done. And then we're like, well, I think there's supposed to be 2 more. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of, what were some of the traditions that you all had in your house growing up?
We, gosh. So basically, we always, were churchgoers every Sunday. Also on Sundays, we didn't work or shop. Or shop. So basically, we would use Saturday to prepare for Sunday so that, basically the 7th day of creation being a day of rest, right? Was completely, and even in the Bible, it talks about don't work on Sunday. That was fully encompassed, growing up. So Sundays a lot were spent at home. And we would, if we wanted to watch TV, it had to be, church related, or it had to be, things like that.
Only on Sundays or all the time?
No, just only on Sundays. Okay. So basically my dad's a big movie buff. So, he was always watching, movies, it's sci-fi and action stuff. But on Sundays, none of that happened. So.
Why? What was the reason behind that?
Religious beliefs. So I was raised LDS, Mormon. And so that's just part of their religion culture, is that there's even a little song about it, that you learn, as a youth in the church. It's Saturday is a special day. It's the day we get ready for Sunday. And it just, there's more, basically it just says you clean the house and you make your food and you basically take that day to prepare for Sunday.
Interesting. So is that something that was normal, having little songs that basically talked about who you were?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, there was a song about being reverent, and there was a song about baptism. There was a song about I think there was one, and it's been, forgive me, a long time, about the steps of kind of joining the church and growing up in the LDS faith. But yeah.
So these were not just songs that your family sang. These were
things you learned in the
kids
church.
in the church would learn and sing. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm curious, going a little deeper, what were some of the expectations of you as a kid that grew up in the LDS church?
I don't know. So in my family in particular, I don't know that there were any specific expectations other than maybe some rules and boundaries. There was a lot of rules around modesty. A lot of the LDS faith, they don't drink caffeine, specifically tea and coffee. And that has something to do with something in the Book of Mormon specifically, which is a book that they use in addition to the Bible.
Okay.
And so, but there you'll see a lot of Mormons drink soda, which has caffeine, but then there are also some that don't, with any religion there, I think of varying degrees of, committedness.
So what do you think, if there weren't necessarily expectations of you, what do you think your parents, like overall, like where do you think they saw your life going?
I think they were hopeful that I would grow up and maybe or maybe not serve a mission. Typically, that's something that the boys are expected to do, but it's not expected of girls. But that I would marry a Mormon.
Can I go back? What is a mission?
Yeah. A mission is like it's different than when you think of like a mission trip, in the Christian world. Basically, they take 2 years of their life. Now, I actually think the timing's different now. So it used to be that boys would go for 2 years and girls would go for 18 months.
Okay.
And they would go when they were 19 for boys and 21 for girls. But there have been some changes. I know for sure, but I don't know exactly what they are.
Okay.
On the amount of time that you go. But basically, you are sent to somewhere. So whenever you decide you're going to go on a mission, the higher ups decide where you're going to go, and then you get a letter, basically, and that's like your tells you where you're going to go. It could be, in the United States. It could be anywhere around the world. And then once you figure out where you're going to go, you go to what they call the Missionary Training Center, or the MTC, and you're there for a period of time to kind of prepare and learn, what they want you to teach, while you're on your mission, spreading the gospel. I think people that are going into countries where you have to learn a new language, or they're longer, so you have to learn. I have an uncle that went to Japan, and he had to learn how to speak Japanese, so it just kind of depends on where you're sent.
Interesting.
So,
So growing up, I'm going to guess there weren't a lot of let me just ask it this way. Were there any red flags, or were there things when you were growing up that you're like, that doesn't really seem right? Or maybe did you have questions that you felt like didn't get answered, or things you felt like you didn't know why you did what you did?
I would say I questioned things, but only because I was different, than other kids.
What do you mean?
So we didn't go, if there was like a birthday party on Sunday, I wasn't allowed to go.
So different from other kids that were not in the LDS church.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Because where we lived, we were not close to an LDS church. So there were no other kids in my school that were LDS, or things like that. So,
okay. So my next question for you, you've gone through this whole shift spiritually, probably mentally, emotionally, probably socially.
Right.
How did you work through your shift? And how did it impact your relationships?
It just kind of, so once I started attending a Christian church and really growing my relationship with God, I was getting further and further away from just a lot of the people that I had just known previously, people I had worked with, and I started. It almost changed my personality, which sounds weird, but I grew. I've always been very introverted, and yes, and I still kind of am. I'm the kind of person I prefer to be at home, reading a book, in silence with a cup of coffee, And my husband's the opposite, which is why we work. And it's one of those things I can turn it off and on if I have to, but I prefer not to. And so it kind of got me out of my shell a little bit. And honestly, just over the last year, I have grown and gained a lot of relationships that I never would have expected. And I'm doing things I never would have expected, and it's all just because I'm pressing in and growing my faith.
Yeah.
I'm doing all of the right things. Whereas before, I didn't know that I wasn't doing the right things. So, and what that means for me is I get up early every day and I pray and I read my Bible and I read growth books, and I'm constantly checking myself when I say negative things, and I'm, when I was younger, it wasn't negative, it was just reality. You know what I mean? And so there was my a scope was small, and once I got older, and was kind of more on my own. And then once I started attending another church, and a church that, really, and not that the people did not care about me where I, was at before, but really interested in helping me grow. It's just like, I just exploded, and I was like, oh, and now I have a vision, a vision board, I made one of those, and it's just, things have completely changed. And I'm reaching out, to people, and I'm making new friendships and meeting new people and being part of small groups. And you know what I mean? It's just, all of a sudden, it's just like, and now it's hard to keep up. Mm-hmm. And I am busier now than I have ever been. However, it's not, I was more stressed before doing nothing. If that makes any sense, because I'm fulfilling what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm growing. So it's challenging, but at the same time, I can see the growth. Whereas before there was nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel that, man. Mm-hmm. I feel that. And there's definitely something, and especially as a mom, there's something different about, it's so easy to fill our days. Mm-hmm. We can fill our days from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed.
Right.
And then go back and look and think, I did nothing today. And it's incredible how literally a shift of perspective and a shift with purpose, to move with purpose every day, can have such an impact in how your time is spent. You know what I mean? And how effective your time is spent. What do you think have been some of your biggest hurdles just in life?
Honestly, I had to figure a lot of things out for myself growing up. And I don't think it was any malintent, on my parents' part. I just think there were a lot of us and they had a lot to worry about. So, and I've always been, I'm going to do it my way and leave me alone. And so, because of that, I had to figure things out. So just going to college was honestly my first hurdle, because I figured it all out on my own. No, I was the first one to go to college in my family. So I had to figure out the financial aid and figure out, and then get myself through school and, kind of do all of that. So that was a big hurdle. And college was hard for me, and I didn't know why at the time. And I'll explain why in a minute.
Okay. The smile.
Yeah, I'll explain why in a minute. Because I didn't find out until 6 months ago why college was so hard for me. So college was difficult. And then honestly, after that, I just worked my butt off. I've always been a hard worker. Still am as a mother, because that's
the
some
hardest of
that
work.
Is some hard work. But my pregnancy, marriage. Okay. So then my pregnancies were horrendous. I had something called cholestasis, or cholestasis of pregnancy. ICP, something else you can look up.
I feel like I've heard the term, but I don't know.
So it's super rare. It's less than 1% of people get it.
Of course.
And they don't know, if you look up what causes this, it's all these weird random things, and none of them apply to me. So they're it could be this, or maybe if you're of this descent, or maybe if someone in your family before you had it, but maybe not. So it sounds like
right.
And so it's one of those, so they don't, what it is it has to do with your liver. And I don't have any issues with my liver, which is why it's so weird. And your liver starts to overproduce bile.
Yep.
And then it spills out into your bloodstream. So basically what happens is the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet, and this is the most common, you can itch all over, but it itches. And it feels like it's on the inside. So your blood is itchy. Yeah. Yeah, it's horrendous. It's so terrible.
I believe it.
It's so terrible.
Both times?
Both times. So once, so that's something.
It resolved after.
It's literally as soon as you give birth, within it, it's immediate. It goes away.
So, okay.
Right?
So I had something similar, but only with my first one. Okay. I had something called pup rash.
Yes. On your stomach.
Yes.
Yes.
But it spread so they told me, they're like, after you have her, it'll go away, whatever.
Yeah.
And when I say it did not, like it did. It went away when I was in the hospital. And when I got home, it came back. And it was everywhere.
I've heard that can happen.
It was, well, I had no idea.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. And so like in the same way, like I was so miserable because every part of me just itched. So on top of just having had a child, my first child, and I'm still bleeding, and it's like it was so. So I get it.
It's the worst,
I get
especially
it.
Like
at night, and you can't sleep, and you're already tired.
Let me tell you, I used like a rat tail teasing comb, like with the really like coarse bristles, and I was like itching myself. I think I drove my husband nuts. He definitely like slept in the other room a few times because it was all night. You know, and he's like, I can't sleep. I'm like, I'm sorry, please.
Must be nice to have that problem where you can't sleep.
Feel free to go away. I get it. But yeah, so that was a huge hurdle. And honestly, I did not know that with my second pregnancy, like it was 100%, like it's like 60 to 90%. So like it's pretty much gonna happen. Yeah. So basically what they do is you just deliver early. The risks of like the harm to the baby once you get past a certain point, it's like stillbirth, and there's a lot of
really
sketchy things that can happen. Yeah.
But for what reason? Just because of the overproduction of...
Yeah, I guess because the baby's connected to you and it's in your blood. So I guess because the levels increase, you know, as you get further along. And so, yeah, so I delivered both of mine. So the first one was at 38 weeks, 2 days, which is not that early. And honestly, it should have been earlier. But my doctor did not believe that I had it, you know, because it's so uncommon. Yeah. And so at that point, the tests were still not showing that I had it, so I don't blame her. But she did another test, and it was on a Friday, I remember. And the results, and you can see the results before the doctor's office is back open again. So like I could see that the number was high, and I was like, so I was like awaiting her call, you know, Monday. And she's like, hey, I don't know what you're doing today. This is what she said to me on the phone. If you want to come in, we can deliver the baby, or what's your schedule? I was like
today.
Oh yeah. So immediately we just went in. Yeah. And the second one was planned, obviously. So I was induced, but so yeah, that was a fun hurdle. But during that process, is how I found out that I have some pretty severe ADHD.
So the way you said it.
Pretty severe. So, and it originally was diagnosed as generalized anxiety disorder, which a lot of women that have ADHD are misdiagnosed as having anxiety disorder because there's some overlap.
I believe it.
And so that's first what and she was like, you need to get this under control for the health of the baby, you know, because I was pregnant at the time. And so that's kind of how it started. And then I actually have one of my best friends. It's funny, like literally all three of us are terribly ADHD, which is why we get along. She was like, you can't even finish a sentence before you start talking about something else. I'm like, really? I didn't know. So, and then
that just sounds like a woman to me anyway.
It's so bad though. And so once I started learning more and more about like the way an ADHD brain works and like how you get nothing done and how it's so interesting. I was like, oh my
You might have just diagnosed me, man. I don't know. Like,
so it's like
sounds like my head.
It's crazy. It's like your thoughts are there's so much going on you can't even sort it out. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes like you get stuck. They call it ADHD paralysis. You're just like, there's so much to do and I don't know where to start. So I'm just gonna sit here and not move. So anyways, and there's more to it than that. And a lot of times women don't know and they have it until they have kids. Because that's when it gets really hard. So they just kind of like manage, until they're older. So my doctor said, and this is not me patting myself on the back, but she said that children that are smart a lot of times don't get diagnosed because they still do fine in school. So they don't have issues and then go to the doctor to figure out what's going on. Yeah. Like I still did great in school. And so it wasn't hard. Like college was hard, but I still made it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't until I had the real challenge of raising children that I was going to lose my ever-loving mind. And then the, dots connected.
Listen, it's like an unwritten written rule that as a mother, you have to lose your mind.
So that's another thing that kind of like made the shift happen. Because once I am a pretty clean living human. Like, I don't like to take medicine. I'm like even somewhat tinfoil hat, as my husband calls it, like almost. And so I try, like, I stay away from a lot of things. Like, we don't use any chemicals in the house. And, he says I have hippie detergent. And so, like, I did not want to take medication, but it got to the point where I was like, I cannot even function. And so as soon as I did, and I started taking such a low dose, like, my life completely changed. I was able to just, like, even think. So now, I can get through, that's why things change so rapidly, because I can actually sit down and read my Bible and learn something from it.
Yeah.
And remember something, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, that was a huge hurdle.
That's a whole like, you could come back and talk about just that.
It is so interesting. There's actually really interesting TED Talks on it. It's this woman, and I don't remember her name, but it's very fascinating. Because, a lot of people are misdiagnosed, and there's, like, a lot of kids are misdiagnosed just because of all the junk that's in the food these days. So, but yeah, it really completely changed my life. So now I'm actually able to focus on, and get out of my own head, and do things like this and, plug in and dig in and grow my faith. So, I was always like, why, I don't need medicine because, God can just heal me. It's fine. But that may not be, he may be like, no, this is a tool for you.
And also
to get,
he made
medicine for a reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I got a couple more questions and then I'll let you go. I know.
No.
What have been some of your biggest, like, lessons learned? Most valuable, even lessons learned.
Oh my
just considering everything, like, that you experienced growing up, the shifts that were happening in your life. Like, what have been some of your biggest or most valuable lessons?
Honestly, like, don't let fear or lack of understanding keep you from doing anything. That has been one of my biggest. So there were just a lot of things I was just going along in life because I didn't know any better, but it's only because I didn't want to know any better. So once I really started to plug in and learn, you know what I mean? And, I was afraid because I knew I was going to have to make some life changes.
Yep. That's tough.
So that's honestly one of the biggest, because if people see that, it's like, I don't want to do that because I'm not going to get to do what I want to do. However, God's plan for your life is so much bigger and better than we can even see.
Yep.
So once you even get a little glimpse of, like, his goodness, it changes everything. It really does.
Last question. So, if you could leave listeners with one piece of advice.
Oh my gosh. That's an interesting question.
And I can even channel it more. Like, if you could leave listeners with one piece of advice, like, maybe there are people that are going through this shift where, maybe their whole life or their identity was found in something that they're moving away from. Like, what would be?
Honestly, it's, for me, it's my identity is not attached to any one thing. You know what I mean? A religion, for me, it's God. And so I would just encourage, anyone that's struggling with that to really, religious or not, like, if you are a religious person, pray about it, do some research, don't just believe what everyone else tells you. And it could be anything. And just in general in life, like, you really have to do some self-reflecting and some like, helping yourself to grow and to change and challenge yourself makes all the difference. Like, it's hard, but it really does make a difference, for the positive.
Right.
So.
Well, I really appreciate you coming and,
thanks for
and
having
sharing
me.
your journey and your story. And I firmly believe that there will be women who walk away and needed to hear this. They will walk away with something valuable from something that you had to experience. You know,
I hope so.
Part of your journey. So,
I hope so.
again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for being on Mom with a Microphone.
I enjoyed it. Thanks.